Hey, howdy, hey, friends and neighbors! Let's talk about curly dock, also yellow dock. This is Rumex crispus, and it's a fairly common plant. A lot of these Rumex plants are edible, so if you happen to get the wrong one, you're probably fine. Although, don't get the wrong one because we want to be safe. Here's how we can identify it. Yellow dock or curly dock is a biennial plant, biennial meaning it lasts 2 years. In the first year, it grows a basal rosette, basal meaning at the base or at ground level, and then a rosette is a pattern of leaves that come out from a central point, kind of like petals on a rose. And if you were to dig down, you would find that the root is just right below those leaves. The leaves go pretty much down right into the root. In the second year, it will grow a stem. That says forms a stand. I clearly did not proofread this, but it forms a stem, and the stem will have leaves along it, so the leaves don't just stay, at the ground. Now, its leaves are curly at the edges, hence the name curly dock, and they almost have a ruffled appearance. A lot of the rumexes will have a sort of a wavy edge, but this is the most wavy. It's referred to as a self-irrigating plant because when it rains or when the dew collects on it, the little waves cause the dew to run down and drip down onto the ground to feed the plant's roots. So I told you that's why it's called curly dock. The reason it's called yellow dock is because the root will be yellow, especially on the inside if you cut it open. Now that's only if it's had sort of a tough life. If it's had an easy life out, if it's been well watered in your garden or if it's been down by a stream somewhere, then the root won't be nearly as yellow because it's had a lot more growth, so the medicinal components are spread out over a larger area in the plant, and it's not nearly as medicinally effective. So when you dig one of these up, you want to dig it up from dry ground, from some place where it hasn't had an overly easy life. And if you cut into that root, it should be yellow. So these seeds will cluster together around that stalk that we were talking about, the stem, the stalk up from the center. And the seeds are rounded and they have winged husks. And we're going to have a picture on the next picture, so you'll get to see what that looks like. But they start out green, and then they turn to a sort of a reddish and become sort of a rusty red-brown, and then they'll eventually be brown. And they're really easy to harvest. You can get a bunch in a short time just to grab the bottom of the stalk and run your hand up it, and just strip the stalk. Bunch of them in a hurry. They're not super easy to work with, but it's worth it to try it out. And then, as I said before, most docks are edible. So if you're not 100% sure that you have the right species, really curly edges, you can find that root, cut into it, make sure that it's yellow. Well, gosh, I don't want to just tell you, oh, you'll be fine, go ahead and eat it, and then have somebody pick the wrong thing and get sick. I'd feel terrible about that. So, yeah, go ahead and talk to a local expert if you're not sure. Chances are you're going to be fine, but let's not be reckless. Next, let's talk about the edibility, because you can eat it. I don't particularly like it. Well, let's get into it. This is a high nutrient value plant. There's a lot going on in here in terms of good for you nourishment. It has a deep, a big taproot. It really gets down deep into the ground and pulls up a lot of minerals, and a lot of the benefits can come from the mineral content of the plant. I was going to say probably not if you're just making a tincture of it, because that's not going to give you many minerals. But if you're actually eating parts of the plant, you're going to be enriching your body with those minerals and those micronutrients from the soil. You can eat the seeds. Typically, you would roast them to help you break off the hulls. The roasting helps to dry them, and then you can rub them, real hard between your hands, or you might put them in a. I've tried a few different things, and I'm not sure what is the best way. Rubbing them between your hands works fairly well. It at least gets the wings off. You could try putting them in an envelope and running a rolling pin over it. You could try putting them in a blender or your herb grinder and just pulsing them just a little bit, and then winnow them. Take them outside with a light breeze, or put them in front of a slow fan, and you can kind of. I sort of use a two bowl system, or a bowl with all the seeds and the bits, and then a pan below it, and then I'll shake a few down out of that bowl, and then let them fall down to the pan, and then let the wind carry any of that chaff away. It's not a perfect system, but it works pretty well. In any event, you can eat the hulls. They're just extra fiber if you're not real sensitive to getting a lot of bulk fiber. It'll be fine. I'm not sure how well you digest the husks if you don't get them off, but it won't kill you. It's not poison. The leaves are edible, raw or cooked. They're bitter. If you get them when they're real young, they're not too bad. And cooking will help take away the bitter. Treat them like a dandelion leaf. You can boil them in a lot of water, let that bitterness come out. They have some oxalic acid we'll talk about in a minute. The roots are also kind of edible. People don't eat them as a food because they taste nasty. I mean, they're awful. But they do have a medicinal, edible, nutritive value. You don't eat them when they're fresh. They'll make you throw up. You have to dry them first. Yeah, and they just taste awful. Let's go ahead and get to the medicinal properties. This is an alterative, laxative, hepatic, cholagogue, tonic. Mainly, the main things this plant will do for you is the hepatic. It's good for your liver. It's good for cleansing the liver, for keeping all the channels open and moving. And it's good for nourishing you, especially if you get the root, which, again, is just awful. But it's so good for you. So many dense nutrients. And it's known to be, I don't know if it's the claim to fame, but one of the better known uses for this plant is to treat chronic skin conditions, whether that's psoriasis or, what have you. I mean, for some reason, it has a real affinity for healing the skin, for nourishing the skin and relieving the skin. So, if you've got, acne, old injuries that you're trying to heal up, just anything with the skin, it would be worth giving it a try because this plant does like to help skin conditions. And it's good for jaundice from congestion. That's part of the. I guess that kind of links up the skin and the liver, doesn't it? But it helps to cleanse out the liver, which helps to clear up the jaundice. There are a few cautions that we should talk about. For one thing, it can amplify the effects of laxatives. That's always important to know ahead of time. You don't want to be in a car trip and have that kick in. It does have a mild laxative effect on its own because of its cholagogue and its liver bile stimulating properties. I wouldn't call it a strong laxative, more just the gentle help you go kind of laxative. But if you're taking something else at the same time, they can kind of double up on you. That's not a good surprise. Also, the fresh root can cause vomiting, so don't eat it fresh. You won't get very far into it anyway. It's not going to be a good flavor. If you want to work with the root, though, I would advise cut it. I like to peel the outer skin off, and then cut it up before you dry it, because once it's dry, it's really hard and hard to work with. So, in general, with roots, cut them up before you dry them, so they're in manageable pieces. Also, this plant has oxalic acid. I think this is mainly in the leaves. It might be in the roots too. I'm not 100% sure, but it's definitely in the leaves. So what does oxalic acid do? Well, most of the time, it doesn't do anything to you. Under certain conditions, you should be cautious about it. If you have some specific medical conditions, such as if your body isn't able to clear it out, if you have trouble with gout, some types of arthritis can be aggravated by oxalic acid. Or if you eat a lot of it over a long period of time, it can cause some nutritional problems. It can cause some. Now, does it keep you from absorbing a mineral? Does it pull out of your body? I'm not off the top of my head. I don't remember, but I know it does cause it can cause a nutrient deficiency if you're eating a lot of it over a long period of time. But in the foraging books, people treat oxalic acid like it's the boogeyman, like it's coming out to get you. But really, a lot of our food has oxalic acid. It's in everything. Your own body makes it. And it does have a function in the body. It does do something for us. It's just like anything else. You can get too much of it, and then it becomes a problem. So, I mean, do your own research. Use your own wisdom. But in my own opinion, I'm not worried about oxalic acid for most people most of the time. Right? So don't Don't totally forget about it. Just don't freak out. Okay, and now let's talk about the preparations and some of the quantities that you can use when working with curly dock, yellow dock. If you want to make a tincture, you can use 1 to 2 milliliters, which is on most of your droppers. It's a just one whoop squeeze on the little bulb is going to be a milliliter. You may want to check yours out though. You may have an extra large one or an extra small one. But 1 to 2 little droppers about 3 times a day to get the medicinal effects. Remember, that won't give you the nutrient effects. That would be like saying, "Oh, I'm going to get more vitamin A in my diet," and then taking a teaspoon of carrot. It's just not enough. You can prepare it as a decoction by taking 1 to 2 teaspoons of the root, put it in a cup of water, or more, it doesn't matter. Bring that to a boil and then let it simmer for 10 to 15 minutes. Then you can drink that 3 times a day, and it's gonna be rough. You got to put on a brave face because it tastes kind of like vomit. Not that I've eaten vomit, but you know what I mean. Woo. Now the quick method, the way just to tough it out and get it done. The one that I prefer when I use this, and I do use this from time to time, especially in the spring when I want to do sort of a spring cleansing and detox in my body. I'll tough it out and take some of this for a week or so. The quick method is just to take a teaspoon or 2 of the powder. So take the root, put it in your blender or your herb grinder, something that can handle it, and powder it. Put it in some water, stir it up, and just chug it down. Just hold your nose and just gulp, 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 and then have something really good tasting to chase that down with. I mean, have a glass of milk or something thick that can coat your tongue and hide the flavor of it. And that's my own personal recommendation. You may have a way that you prefer. You could also take it in something kind of like when I'll do turmeric or something else that has a very strong flavor and I just want to get more of it. You can mix it with something like a honey, or I think oil. Oil actually works really well for turmeric, and I bet it would work really well for yellow dock, although I've not tried that. Is I will just heat up a little coconut oil so it's a liquid and put because I've used it with turmeric. I put the turmeric in there and kind of stir it up, and that oil helps to hold on to all of the powder to keep it from interacting with the taste buds so strongly. So you might give that a try. But there you go. That's my little mini report on Rumex crispus, yellow dock, also known as curly dock. Hope you're enjoying the videos. If you want to get any bonus content and help support the efforts, the zombie preparedness efforts, you can go check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/foragersguide, no apostrophe in there, and you can get some neat stuff for signing up. The lowest one is $1. Well, I'm not going to do a commercial. You can check it out if you want to, and if you don't want to, that's fine. There's no hard feelings. High five. Woo! There we go. There's your high five. Okay, I will see you in the next video, and until next time, I want you to keep your eyes out for plants and zombies. Happy foraging, everybody.